looks at me, opens it up, unwraps it, takes a bite out of it. But that cost $250,000 for us to do that.
That's an expensive quarter pounder.
This one's Bono's Rattle and Hum. So he thanks me here, and Quincy Jones tells the story on that record, on the back of that record. The reason why I went forward after being rejected so much in Hollywood and just no one taking interest.
Welcome to the Luke Branquinho Show. My next guest is somebody that I could remember seeing his name when I went to the National Finals as a kid. I can remember seeing CLS limos, and the athletes, the world champs from the year before, had their names, and I may be a little wrong, but their names were autographed into the fenders of these limos in pinstripe. Charlie Horky, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, hey Luke, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me this morning. Yeah, that was my idea back in the 90s. What we did was I'm trying to think who it was. I think it was Ty Murray and Cody Ole and Tuff Hedeman and Fred Whitfield, and I can't remember. It was few. And so we had them stylize the back of the cars to autograph the rear quarter panel. And on top of that, what we did was we took their likeness and we put it on the back of the shuttle vehicles at the airport, and then advertised that, this was the rodeo Cowboys transportation choice. And that worked pretty good, to tell you the truth.
It was, I could remember as a kid, and you said late, 90s. So I'm not exactly the exact days or year, but I could remember sitting there at the Gold Coast with my folks. We're getting ready, waiting for a cab or a limo or a truck at the valet. And I'm like, holy crap. Look at these limos go by with Cody Ole, Charmaine Jane. I mean, you had all of them on there. And anyway, so backstory on Charlie. He was, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the second largest limo service in the United States at that time.
I was for a moment. Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and spill the beans. You wrote a book, life experience, everything that from start to finish or start to where we're at now. And I got to read it on my way back home from France, and unbelievable. I mean, I think the way that you wrote it, I know that you left a lot out, and there's a lot more that can be shared. And I think purposely did it that way. Genius, like what you've done in business. But starting out at a young age, in the services you did, I mean, you drove Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, some of the very best, biggest stars in the world is where you started.
Yeah. That was just what I was thrust into. I think if I had been in the limousine business in, I don't know, another city, it might not have been as interesting. Mm-hmm. In the 1980s, I started, I was just lucky. I worked at a rent-a-car company, delivering cars, and they delivered cars to rock stars. And so when I got my first car, I went to this company, Frontline Management, and said, hey, I'm in the limo business. And I might've been 21. I mean, next time you see a 21-year-old, think about that. And right. And I went in there and she said, hey, yeah, great. And like, here's Dan's album, and here's his flight information, go pick him up. And that's how I got into that. I mean, it was just as simple as making a contact and working for this management company. And that's how I met a singer that's passed away named Dan Fogelberg. He was a very well-known singer. And, he turned me on to Jimmy Buffett, and Jimmy Buffett turned me on to Joe Walsh, and Joe Walsh turned me on to Don Henley. And, it's just a word of mouth thing. Right. And it was back in the early 80s. And, that's how that started. Michael Jackson, I met him through Quincy, and I met Quincy through a guy that was getting out of business. And he had me drive Quincy one night, and I was just thrust into the rock and roll business. It was just the path I was led to, and I just worked it.
Your personality and how you treat people and how you handled situations is what kept the business. I mean, you have to be a people person and know how to read people to keep starting. And I'm not saying all of them are like that, but they all probably have little quirks that they don't like this, they do like that. You have to know that, and you have to read that, and you have to provide that for them.
There was stuff that was going on, and when I was in the 80s, which was in my 20s, the limousine industry wasn't that hard. I mean, it's a service provider deal, right? Kind of like a cab. And so the people I was dealing with, it wasn't that difficult. It wasn't until the 1990s when we started doing business with Ritz-Carlton's hotels, where we really learned kind of a mission, an ethos of who we wanted to be, because they made us go through their orientation for Ritz-Carlton, where you learn that we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And the light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, man, all we have to do, not all we have to do, but we should adopt everything they're doing. And that's what we did. And we, we're working for that hotel and put all of our drivers through the orientation, and then expanded on it. So now we became a limousine company that understood two things: service delivery and duty of care.
And reading that in the book, it makes a lot of sense what the Ritz-Carlton, you adopt that. But I felt like, and I know you did, that you were providing some of those personal care services prior to that. I mean, if they wanted something, you made sure it happened. It wasn't like, well, next driver will get you, because that's how you built those relationships.
Well, I mean, you get a guy like Sam Kennison call you in the middle of the night and say he wants 3 limousines, and you can't figure out why he wants them at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, he wanted them because he wanted the bars in them. So, we rolled up to his house, and he said, "Hey, I couldn't get liquor after 2 o'clock. I knew you had bars in your cars. Would you mind if I just stripped all 3 cars of your booze? And, happy to pay for them." And yeah, sure, Sam, whatever you want. I mean,
Well, what was it? Who was it that wanted to meet, or really, really wanted to meet Quincy Jones, and you drove? Was it Bono? Bono, yeah. Drove him up to Quincy Jones's door.
Well, actually, that's interesting, because this photo, this back here, that's Quincy Jones's record, Q's Juke Joint, and this one's Bono's Rattle and Hum. So he thanks me here, and Quincy Jones tells the story on that record, on the back of that record. And that quite simply was, I was driving Bono in 1987, and he had mentioned to me in conversation that Quincy Jones was someone he had never met. So while Bono was having dinner, I called Quincy Jones, because he was one of my clients, and I said, "Hey, I got Bono in the car, and I'm going to bring him over after dinner." And Quincy was like, "Sure." And so we drove over to Quincy's house, and I introduced Bono to Quincy, and we walked into his living room, and Quincy asked him what he was working on, and he said he was working on this record, Rattle and Hum. And he said, "Well, what track you working on?" Something like that. And Quincy told him, he said, "Well, get up and sing it. Sing it for me." And it's like he'd never known this guy at all. And here's Bono, this world-renowned, rock star, and he stood up in Quincy Jones's living room, candle lit, looking over LA, and belted out "When Love Comes to Town," like there was 250,000 people he was singing for. I mean, it was just amazing. And anyway, they became great friends, and that's how he met Quincy Jones.
Wow.
Just right place, right time,
Yeah, well, but I mean, I do agree with right place, right time, but you seem to find yourself in the right places at the right time often to have the success that you had.
Yeah, I was there that night that John Belushi overdosed. I was driving him, and my first experience with being subpoenaed by the grand jury to come, talk about what happened that night. But which wasn't much. I was sitting in a car, and all night long, and next thing you know, ambulances and police are showing up.
I love the story in the book about what was it? They wanted a Big Mac from McDonald's, and it was like 2 a.m.
Yeah, I was driving one of the princes from the royal family of Brunei in South Florida, and he was down there buying a couple of helicopters, and his security guy said he wanted a quarter pounder with cheese at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was before McDonald's actually started serving burgers at 6 in the morning. It was like breakfast till 10. But, they said it was closed, and I had to get it done. So I called the general manager of the hotel, which he wasn't happy about. And he was pretty pissed. I was calling him and telling me how I couldn't get done. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what's going to get done for sure." I said, "Is that if you can't get this guy to open his McDonald's up for me tonight, we're going to take what is $50,000 a day and go across the street and stay at the Ritz-Carlton. So you can either wake this guy up."
Your choice.
Yeah. And he woke him up, and he got the mayor to get a hold of this fella and open this place up. and I had it open by around 5. I got the quarter pounder, came back, gave it to the security guy. Security guy looks at me, opens it up, unwraps it, and takes a bite out of it. And he said he was asleep, but that cost $250,000 for us to do that. And then the reason why it cost so much, in actual fact, was because the city of Palm Beach was so pissed that they did that they gave the $250,000 to 10 different charities locally, of $25,000 a piece.
Oh wow, that's an expensive quarter pounder.
Yeah, it didn't make a damn bit of difference. I don't think anyone that mattered thought about it for one fleeting moment. I mean, before these people used to come into town, we would go with their handlers to the Federal Reserve and pick up money. Like, they didn't touch money that had already been touched. I mean, money was always brand new, and it was in those cellophane wrappers of 10,000 a piece up to 100,000, these bricks. And we'd load up, a duffel bag full of that stuff at the reserve and head back to the hotel. And that's how they rolled.
And they just didn't want other people touching their money, or had touched their money, or is that just their culture? That's strange.
They're royals.
Oh,
I mean,
I guess I've never experienced that.
I once rented a jet ski park in Florida for one of them. And I said, okay, listen, you know the deal. Once I've rented your place, don't you dare step foot in that water. And they were like, what do you mean? I go, that's royal water. I go, that's not for you. I go, we own that now.
Oh, wow. And that's what I mean, like reading the book, which we're going to get it out there for, when you're ready, we're going to push it out there for everybody to read it. But that's what I mean. Those few and really few stories that are in the book, there has to be hundreds of stories like that.
Everyone has a great story. You have a great story. I mean, clearly, and it's all worth, I guess, being recorded. And there's a million good stories, and it's a 1 in a chance that you're going to get made into a movie. And I went through the whole gamut of writing it and having a screenplay done about the whole thing. And what's the most scary part, Luke, is that you give your story to a guy who writes a screenplay, and it's his version of your life.
Yeah.
The reason why I went forward after being rejected so much in Hollywood and just no one taking interest, was because I thought I could get a job speaking, that maybe I could, tell my story and get paid to do something like that. And I'm sure there's enough speakers in the world, but I went down that path, and they turned it into more of a cautionary, motivational storybook. So when you say, hey, I'm sure there's a lot more to it. Yeah, for sure there was, but it didn't. But the story you're reading is what fell into the genre of how they wanted to present that book. Like that book, when it goes out, it'll be under, business, motivational, whatever. It won't be like, hey, you should buy this before you get on an airplane and read it.
Right. Well, and from start to finish, I mean, start short childhood, business, starting the business, the fall of a business, and then obviously the NFR was at 2011? 12. Yeah, when the FBI came knocking on your door. Not knocking on it, when they blew it off its hinges.
Yeah, they don't do a very good job of knocking,
Right.
And then the irony of it is they could have. I mean, they just could have shown up at your door, knock, 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 wake up and go, hey, here, you're under arrest. But that's not any fun. It's more fun when you got like 56 cowboys staying at your house, and a bunch of horse trailers and people sleeping, and you're all set up for the NFR, and 70 guys in tactical gear decide that you need to come with them.
This guy's a threat. We need 70 guys. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It was a big to do. There was a lot of guys. I mean, they had the helicopter and the tank and, all that stuff. Cause they were worried about T Money, messing with them.
I'm worried about T Money.
All 6'3" of them in his underwear, as they were saying, get on the ground,
I'm worried about T Money giving me a hug and squeezing the life out of me. That's a big man when he gives you a hug.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. He stood right up to those guys, and they told him to get on the ground. And he said, there's no way I'm getting on the ground. And he told me this story because I was on the other side of the house, and I was definitely on the ground. I listened to them. They told me to get on the ground. I got on the ground. But T Money, he did not. He said, he told him that I won't imitate him, but he said, no, I'm not getting on the ground. It's 6 o'clock out here. It's freezing cold. I'm not laying on the cement. They said, okay, well, we're not here for you. We're here for him.
Like I said, you grew up 20 years old, 21, young 20s with rock stars. That was the lifestyle. I mean, getting hung up in drugs and alcohol, how do you not when you're in that lifestyle? You know what I mean?
Well, you know, if you're me and you're 23, 24 years old and you're thinking that the only people who had a drug problem were the people who couldn't afford it.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a problem. I can afford the $100. No one knew what cocaine, you didn't know what that was all about then. I was having fun with you guys. It was a blast.
Right. But early on you did you in the book said you went to the Betty Ford Clinic, right?
I did. I went to the Betty Ford Clinic in 1987 with Eddie Van Halen.
With Eddie. I mean, this is stuff you can't make up. I mean,
and we plotted and schemed about how we were going to call our friend Nigel, who was an airplane broker guy, and have him land a helicopter on the lawn at Betty Ford and get us out of there, which we never did because it wasn't because we didn't try, but it was because we were told by the guy that was going to do it that he was called by all of our family members. He was not to do it. I think I stayed sober about maybe 65 days after Betty Ford. Betty Ford was just kind of a moment of clarity. Gosh, it wasn't until many years later, well, unfortunately, I went again, that I got that clarity. And
well, what do we got going now? I know Slade Services is doing well, and so what I love is you have connections everywhere in the industry.
Yeah, well, that's what I got to do every day. I'm currently taking care of a young performer named Tate McRae. And I think she's 22, 23, maybe the next Taylor Swift. You never know. But she's doing big business. And, I can't make my business anymore on aging rock stars, the guy I grew up with. I need these new, younger, relevant people. And I, too, need newer, younger, relevant people to work with me because everyone I'm working with these days is half my age. I mean, it's,
right.
But I like what I do. I do all of when Tom Cruise makes a movie, I do all of his stuff through his security company. And what? If you're driving Tom Cruise, it must say something about your company. I mean,
absolutely,
he's no slouch.
How can we get people? And again, this is more to tell your story. How do we get people to be able to get on and get it?
As far as throwing it out there and hoping that like a bunch of people read it and it becomes a bestseller, I'm not sure if that's where I'm going.
Well, anytime you want to get it out there, you just let us know. And
I'm going to come back to you.
I got some rapid fire questions, and then we're going to let you go. All right, you ready for this?
Sure.
Favorite celebrity? Sting?
Yeah.
What was so favorite? Why was he your favorite? I got to ask.
Well, he's the only one that I could say I actually know. I mean, I've met everyone there is to meet. I work for Tom Cruise, but I don't know Tom Cruise. I've known Sting since 1981. I've known his wife and their children. I saw them as babies, and now he's a father of 6 children and a fair amount of grandchildren. And I see the amount of time that he spends working, which is would blow anyone away. Talk about the cadence it must take in life to be as successful as he is. It's unbelievable. But he's in my worst, let me back up. In my worst moments, Luke, when I got arrested, everybody ran away from me. And the tour manager calls me up one day and he says, I can't really imitate him in his English accent, but he goes, he's coming. And I said, well, I don't have a limousine company anymore. And he goes, he knows you'll figure it out.
Well, Charlie, I cannot thank you enough. This has been awesome. I know the fans of the Luke Branquinho show are going to absolutely love it.
I hope so. You're awfully nice to bringing me on today. That was that meant a lot to me. Thank you. You really are a true friend. Most people will tell you, send me your book. No one reads your book. You're reading it means so much to me, and it means a lot to me to be able to talk to you about it and to talk to more people about it, and just to get to hang out with you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Well, I hope you all have enjoyed us visiting, Charlie Horky and I. And Charlie, again, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Luke.